Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the PH Journals podcast. I'm going to try and keep this introduction pretty short and sweet. We've got a jam-packed show today. After everything that has happened in the past couple of weeks, I decided now is the perfect time to talk about something that I think has been forgotten within the hunting industry, but also within conservation outlets and conservation perspectives. And it's all about empathy. But yeah, before we get into this week's episode of the podcast, just want to say that we'll be heading off to the Kruger in the next couple of weeks, or in the next day. But for a couple of nights, some much needed downtime is needed with the family. And we're heading into the Kruger. It's my first time into the Kruger, so I'm pretty amped for that. I'll be taking you guys along for the ride, so please stay tuned on all my socials. And tune in, ask questions, and I'll try and find out as much as I possibly can. And hopefully I have tried to line up with some of the guards within Kruger. They're extremely busy at the moment, so I'm hoping to have one or two of them on the podcast while we are up there. But without further ado, let's get into this week's episode of the podcast. Well, guys, I think it's only fair. Firstly, I just want to apologize about my congestiveness. I went down a rabbit hole on my previous podcast as well, and it seems like September with the change of season, I always get the sinus congestion. But I think it's very important over the past couple of years of being an outfitter, being a professional hunter. I've been more involved with American politics, and the reason for that is just following it. So because majority of our clientele that come out are from America, so it's important to understand where the political landscape is heading that side. And I grew very, very fond of Charlie Kirk. I might not have agreed with a lot of the things he said. Let me rephrase that. I might have agreed with a lot of the things he said. I did have my disagreements with some of his perspectives. But he was an incredible human being, and he had a unbelievable amount of influence and impact on my life from a personal standpoint. My religion grew stronger thanks to him. My perspective changed on many topics thanks to him. But something I learned and I valued more and more with a lot of the debates he used to have is the value of family, the value of being a father, and the value of being just an all-round good gentleman. He stood for a lot of what I stand for, and I looked up to him in a sense that he was brave, he was courageous, he was an incredible human being, and a lot of his morals, ethics, and values I want to implement in my life. And for what it's worth, I had scheduled this podcast before his assassination. And I was going to talk about empathy. But something that kind of lit the fire inside me was when it all went down, I realized how desensitized we are to human life. I was able to watch the assassination in happen from videos. I was able to watch the young Ukrainian girl getting stabbed on a train or on a bus. And I realized one thing. I realized that these images have been strewn across the internet, and I watched the reactions of many people. In Charlie Kirk's case, I watched the reactions of the people that had disagreements from him and celebrated his death. And from the young Ukrainian girl that was stabbed, I watched individuals right next to her not even reach out to try and assist her in any way, shape, or form. And the reasons for all of this are debatable, and I don't like getting into those sort of debates. But when I translate it into the hunting industry, and actually this time not just completely into the hunting industry, but into conservation, I am so gobsmacked with how desensitized not hunters, but people that come out and enjoy safaris are to wildlife. I want to play you guys a video. And for years, PH Journals, the brand PH Journals, was based on moral and ethical values on why hunting is one of the best conservation tools we have to offer. I watched a video the other day and I'm going to play it right now. So if you don't mind, we can watch it together. Now, for what it's worth, you guys can see from those videos that there's a bunch of them going around. The sad disconnect of implication that we have on rerouting those migrating wildebeest it's heartbreaking. And before I get too much into this topic, I want to take this opportunity to, I don't know how significant my podcast really is in the greater scheme of things, but just really say my condolences to the Kirk family. It's your loss has been felt not just in the United States but across the world, and I really hope that Charlie's legacy lives on for a very, very long time, if not forever. And if there's any way we can honor them, we'll try our best to do so. But I think right now, if there was any way that I could focus on honoring such an incredible individual, was taking some of the practices that I had learned from him, and some of the religious beliefs that he had taught me about, and practice it in my own home, and hopefully grow better and stronger as an individual. And so guys, like I said, PH Journals has been molded on the fact that hunting is one of the best conservation tools we have to offer. Trying to convince and I hate using that word of trying to convince individuals on why hunting is necessary, but rather educate people on why hunting is such a necessary tool for the preservation of wildlife. Yeah, my argument about this, and sorry, excuse me. when I watch videos like that, I kind of feel like we are the wrong enemy. I kind of feel like the people that are trying to educate hunters why hunting is a terrible way of conservation, they doing themselves injustice when uneducated individuals are coming out on a hunting program, well, not a hunting program, sorry, forgive me, on a safari program. The safari guards are taking them to these spots and completely unethically and morally doing complete injustice to what these animals deserve. And I've kind of got to the point where I'm like, you know what? There's no hope. There's no hope for individuals like that. There's no hope for those safari guards. There's no hope for those safari companies to have any sort of argument on why hunting shouldn't be allowed. Because if you guys can't control that behavior, then unfortunately we can't sit in the same room and have a constructive discussion until you guys sort that out first. And I say you guys because I solely believe the individuals in those videos do not represent hunters. They are not hunters. I can tell you right now. Maybe the guys that are filming this to try and persuade these people not doing it. Maybe there are a bunch of guys there that are ethically hunting, well, ethical hunters in their own right, that are saying, guys, listen, this is wrong. This is wrong. In one of the videos I watched Sue Tidwell posting, you can hear the guy's absolute disgust in his voice. And whether he's a hunter or not, I can't answer that. But I just feel that the hunting conversation on why it should be banned or shouldn't be allowed is completely irrational if you can't control your own people. And I'm angered by this because we've seen the UK close hunting now, or the importation of trophy hunters. Where are they when shit like this is going down? Where are they to hold guards and tourists responsible for unethical behaviors on safari outings? Where are they? They will not be seen close by. They will not make a stink of this. This hasn't hit any mainstream media. It hasn't been brought to any one of the anti-hunting organizations or anything like that. This is just on social media. Nothing is getting done. And this is why I decided to talk about the topic of empathy. As hunters, we need to understand that that's a part of hunting. We cannot, for the sake and the good of our wildlife, we cannot discard empathy. We cannot desensitize ourselves to taking an animal's life. I've got a couple of points down, and I prepped for this. Like I said, this podcast has been a long time in the preparation. Excuse me, guys. Sorry, I've got bad allergies at the moment, so if I sneeze, excuse me. September, change of season, pollen's all over the show. So yeah. So guys, please excuse me if I get passionate and angry and upset with some of the behaviors, but for years and generations, us hunters, we've been slandered, we've been slammed, we've been sworn at, eradicated, told that our industry is evil and all this sort of stuff. When shit like this is happening from individuals that can't control themselves, that want to get a Instagram photo for their fucking profile so that they can go and show their friends, oh, we went on safari in Africa. You did it unethically. Your morals and values went through the fucking toilet because you guys couldn't control yourself because you wanted a picture for your Instagram. But none of the anti-hunting groups, none of the bunny huggers and all that sort of shit that we constantly fight as hunters, none of them would turn around and say to them, well, hang on, yeah, guys, what the fuck you guys are doing at these immigration points or these migration points is completely unethical. Completely. Control yourself, because then our argument's a little bit better against the hunters. But until that happens, you guys have no argument against any hunting group. Yes, there are a lot of hunters out there. There are a lot of hunters, there are a lot of outfitters, there are a lot of professional hunters, there are a lot of guards, there are a lot of individuals in the hunting space that are unethical and morally incorrect. We know that. It's like that with any industry. And there's great individuals out there. Sean Kogut from Salt Lake Outdoors, pointing out the rubbish. I see Craig Bonington, he got involved with one of the outfitters that we're doing here. Our fellow hunters are standing up for one another. Yes, and I saw Wayndale getting slandered by a fellow hunter, which is completely bullshit. But that's a discussion for another time. But at the end of the day, us as hunters a whole, well, there are a few of us, well, when I say us, I mustn't put myself in the same bracket because I think I'm a bit of a chicken shit. But anyway, there are individuals out there in the hunting spaces that are holding hunters accountable. But when you get these groups, these anti-hunting groups and all this sort of stuff that want to slander hunters because they think hunting is bad, and then groups like this, safari groups, safari guards, are taking these people across Okavango deltas, the Masamara, and all that sort of stuff, and unethically changing the path of the migration, nothing gets happened. Nothing gets said. Doesn't even make mainstream media. But my fuck, let Cecil the lion die again. Or somebody get trampled by an elephant, or... yeah. Anyway. With that being said, that being shown, I felt it was my duty to show what's really going on these migration points, and I apologize for my language. I'm extremely passionate about my industry. I'm extremely passionate about the morals, the values, the ethics that we stand for as hunters, and I'm speaking on majority of us hunters. Yes, we have a few bad apples, but that's it. I'm very, very passionate, and this is a point I'm extremely passionate on, and that's empathy within the hunting industry. So, defining empathy. Empathy isn't weakness, it's understanding. Understanding that there are client fears. There's an understanding that there's animal sacrifice. The landowner struggles. And sometimes, well, until I saw that video, we even have to take the anti-hunter's emotions into consideration. How does empathy make us a better hunter? A better conservationist? Or is it teaching us to be weak? I'm hoping after this podcast I get to ask that same question, and a lot of you guys get to answer it in a more positive perspective. So I mentioned a couple of points there, and if we're going to have a discussion, let's start off with the client's perspective. We need to understand that clients face nerves, ethical doubts, or even emotional struggles after a kill. As a professional hunter, I've witnessed many, many tears on a kill that hasn't gone quite to plan, or even just a general kill. And the clients get up to it and they are overwhelmed with emotion, whether it be sad, regret. At the end of the day, that animal's life has been taken, and it's our duty as professional hunters to understand that comforting those clients in those harsh moments is a great sign of empathy towards not only the client, but also the respect that animal deserves. Talking about respect that the animal deserves, How can we show empathy towards an animal that's unalived, that's been killed, that's been hunted? I'm a big advocate for photos representing that animal as the main focus point in your pictures, and respectfully taking pictures in a manner that holds that animal high and adds dignity to what it's given up for us as hunters. How we handle trophies. We don't just throw shit around and mistreat the client's trophies. And one of the important aspects is around the campfire later at night. How do we share that story? Do we share it with honor? Is it a joke? Do we share it with dignity? Do we share it as a memory, a moment that will last not only in your mind for a very, very long time, but so too in your clients? Will it hold true to what that animal stood for? That's important. Empathy, unfortunately, it's a vulnerable emotion. Now, being through my mental health journey, I realized there's a lot of strength in showing vulnerability. If you're an individual that struggles to show vulnerability because of your alter ego, and I don't say that it sounds bad when I say it out loud, but I don't mean it's a bad thing. I don't mean you being scared or you being unwanting to share vulnerability because you're a man. You feel like it will take away from your masculinity. I'm here to tell you that that's not the case. There is true strength in showing vulnerability out there. And part of empathy is vulnerability. You have to show emotion. You have to understand the bigger picture, the understanding of what emotion is connected to what we do as hunters. And this is why it is so important. So within the hunting community, empathy can build respect, and it does. Often Pedro, his YouTube channel, he shows immense amount of respect to the animals he hunts. I love it. I love the song after he sits behind the animal after the photos are being taken. There's a lot of individuals that appreciate the process. A lot of influencers can get trapped without showing that emotion. For me, it's very, very important. Here's the big one, and still on the hunting community. Empathy towards fellow hunters. I thought this was going to be a discussion for a whole nother topic. Sean released a video regards to an incident with Wayne Dell. Wayne's ran into some conflict topics on the tracker he's trying to help. Zwei. I find it disgraceful that fellow hunters are smashing one another on social media, and it's unfortunate. It really is, but it's been going on for decades. I mean, whether you're a rifle hunter, a bow hunter, a traditionalist, we've all been slamming one another. Free range, non-free range, half fence, non-half fence. It's shameful, and unfortunately, it's a part of the hunting industry. I don't think right now is going to go away. I hope it does. I think it is getting better. I think there's definitely improvements and empathy and what's the right word I'm looking for? But consideration to one another. And I think that's important for the future generations to come. So, and I get that's why a lot of people don't want to show vulnerability in that sense, because there's egos. There's egos to uphold. There's egos that individuals have to hold on to. But if we can all just forget it and understand that we're all fighting for the same team, I think that's probably one of the most important things that we can do, is understand that this is all for us together. It's not for us. I mean, yeah, we've witnessed, and I'm almost guaranteed that 90% of all hunters will stand up against that. Conservation and landowners. We need to hold extreme empathy towards our landowners that face poaching, economic struggles, livestock theft, fence cutting. I've got property devaluing, wildlife conflicts, fires, the harsh reality of droughts, and uncontrollable Mother Nature activities like hail, tornadoes, that sort of stuff. It was about 3 years ago we had a tornado go through the Fort Beaufort region, and I just looked and the absolute devastation that went on. There were landowners that never had electricity for months. Destroyed some of the citrus lands, and those people that have hunted the Fort Beaufort region would know that that area is just rich with citrus. So we've got to have empathy towards those the landowners, those individuals that we utilize properties to hunt kudu, bushback in that area, baboons, warthog, inyala, giraffe, eland. The list goes on and on and on. Sorry. One thing I've realized about empathy within the hunting community, the individuals, I watched Steve Ranella the other night. He shot an elk a little bit far back. A fellow hunter stumbled upon it the next day and they found it. But Steve was visibly disheartened, ashamed of himself for bad shot placement, even though it's part of what we do. But often those vulnerable moments tell some of the most beautiful stories. And it's individuals with empathy and vulnerability towards one another, towards animals, and respect. It shows a lot of respect towards the wildlife we chase. So empathy does that. Empathy creates these moments where people relate to, and you might sit at home and relate to that, and then when you get out, you're a little bit hard-headed and hard-assed. I know these things because I was there. But it tells an incredible story. It tells a heart-wrenching story. It tells a story about an animal that gave his life to a hunter, and that hunters utilized that opportunity to come back and feed his family and understand conservation a lot better. Because if we don't hunt them, they don't stick around. And that's what empathy does. And I want to highlight that empathy and vulnerability does not make you weak. It's not a sign of you losing your masculinity, but rather a sign that you are increasingly growing into a position in your life where you value and you haven't desensitized yourself from the reality of taking a life. Because you get hunters and you get killers. And that's what we need to understand. While I close this topic, ladies and gents, and on the recent activities that have happened in the past couple of days, with Charlie Kirk and the young lady on the train or the bus, it's important to understand that us as individuals, and especially us as hunters, we've got a role to play now in the greater scheme of society about protecting what we have now so more than ever before. And it's important for us to realize that. And the sooner we can realize that, the sooner we can defend it. We don't need to stand up for the bunny hugger shit anymore. We just need to make sure our core values, our core beliefs, our morals, ethics, and values stay intact, and we keep one another in line, we support one another, and the rest is history. This will be all plain sailing in the greater scheme of things. But yeah, guys, I thought with the recent activities, this was always a great topic to discuss, but now so more than ever before. And I'm going to ask the question again. Does empathy make you weak? Make you less of a hunter? Does it show vulnerability in the wrong places? And I hope after you guys have listened to this podcast, you can decide that for yourself. Because I know strength in vulnerability and strength in empathy can take you a very, very long way. And if you are a young professional hunter, if you are a fellow hunter or a hunter getting into this whole thing, understand that empathy at the core value of what you are about to do, if you've got that, you put yourself in a very, very, very good position in understanding why conservation should be at the heart of every discussion as a hunter. So guys, thank you so much. I didn't want this to be a hard podcast to do, but understanding the circumstances, understanding the topic, and understanding what we've witnessed in the past couple of days, it was always going to be a difficult topic. But I'm glad I did it, and I'm forever grateful. We are in the top 50. I'll put it all in a video at some point. We've top 20 conservation podcast, top 20 outdoor podcast, top 20 hunting podcast, top 20 conservation and recreation podcast, sports and recreation podcast, sorry. We are number one Eastern Cape podcast, number one hunting podcast in South Africa, number 2 podcast in Africa, as far as hunting is concerned. So yeah, I couldn't have done it without you guys. So like always on every podcast, I'm forever grateful for everything you guys have done. So if you haven't yet, turn on the notifications, subscribe, and if you enjoyed this episode, drop a thumbs up. I want to leave you guys with a pretty cool story that we received in we received a couple of weeks ago. I haven't read it yet. Anri, she plowed it onto me. She said this is a good one to share with you guys, so I'm looking forward to it. Good day, PH Journals family. I've got a story for you. Not from the bush itself, but rather just before we even got to camp. Picture this. After a 15-hour marathon flight from Atlanta to Johannesburg, my buddy, this will be his first safari adventure, stumbled off the plane looking like extras from The Walking Dead. You know the drill. Cramped seats, questionable plane food, and for him, a couple of these beers will make the flight go faster. Experiments. Spoiler alert, they didn't. Now, anyone who's traveled to Southern Africa knows what comes next. You're greeted with a smile, a cold drink, and ultimate local snack, biltong. Biltong is basically Africa's gift to mankind. Dried, spiced bushmeat. That's more addictive than Pringles. Once you start, you can't stop. From Kuru to Eland, it's all delicious. But my buddy, he didn't just simply strip didn't simply strip a sorry. He simply didn't taste one or two. No. He went full on predator mode and basically consumed an entire impala's worth of biltong in one sitting. Wash that down with a transatlantic beer collection, and suddenly you've got a very volatile wildlife experiment brewing in his stomach. Fast forward to the next morning in camp. The trackies and PHs are checking baits, keeping an eye out for hyenas and signs of lion around, when suddenly a smell cuts through the bush, heads turn, noses wrinkle. Everyone's thinking, that's hyenas close, real close. Except it wasn't. It was the bush. It was my buddy letting off one of humankind's most elusive smells. Ladies and gentlemen, the first animal to announce itself in camp wasn't lion, wasn't hyena, wasn't even jackal. It was my friend's backside after a biltong beer explosion. The moral of the story: respect the biltong, respect the bushmeat, or the bush will respect you differently. I love that. Sorry, guys. But that's it for me for tonight. Like I said, heading into the Kruger for a couple of nights rest. Much needed. I hope the sinus goes away by that, but I'll be pumping myself full of Allergex. But like always, if you guys are, happy hunting. Until then, stay safe, stay blessed, and stay humble. We'll catch up with you guys soon.